tribe, my PLN, that I learned so much from. But we're now expanding the conversation. So I offered a few talking points this morning, and now we're going to have all kinds of brilliant examples of how social norms development and safety and citizenship happen in virtual environments in school. And I'm really excited about that. Also, professional development, right? So let me just introduce this amazing panel. I'm not going to do it in order. I'm going to just mix up girls and boys a little bit. So Peggy Sheehy, who is two down from me, is best known for her work with students in virtual worlds and MMOGs. She established the first middle school on the teen grid of Second Life in 2006, which that was very early on. She collaborated with Lucas Gillispie, who is right there. He's up next, on the WoW in School project, World of Warcraft in School, and facilitates that project in her public middle school in Suburban New York. And she is acting guild master of the Cognitive Dissonance Educator Guild in World of Warcraft. Lucas Gillispie, right here, has been an educator for 15 years in North Carolina. He's the founder of the World of Warcraft in School project, manages 300 Minecraft accounts for his district, and is launching a new project this year called Saga. He'll tell you a little bit about that. His inspirations are his wife Elisabeth and two daughters, Elora and Tegan. Dr. Bron Stuckey, right in the middle, is an educational consultant in gameful design and community development, working across games for kids such as Arizona State University's Quest Atlantis, and the development of Massively Minecraft. She's from Australia, and she supports teachers across the USA and around the globe to see virtual worlds, communities, and games as spaces for digital citizenship. And she and Peggy are going to be presenting later today. Marianne just did, and I hope you didn't miss it. Chris Haskell is a clinical assistant professor at Boise State University. He specializes in the preparation of pre-service teachers. Yay! We need virtual environments and pre-service education. Co-invented the first game-based learning management system, 3D Game Lab. He recently won a digital medium learning competition to build some of the first Mozilla OBI badges, and researches games just so he has an excuse to play them, right? Throughout the school year. And Marianne Malmstrom, who hails from New Jersey, has been teaching for more than 30 years, currently grades 3 through 8 at the Elisabeth Morrow School, an independent school in Englewood, New Jersey. She believes we will find our way when we let the kids help. Yes. Okay. Well, I don't have to say anything more, really, because you guys have so many examples. I was just talking to Lucas this morning about what happens if you have, and Marianne has a lot to say, you all have a lot to say about this. What happens when you have a 24/7 server, when kids can go on anytime? Does stuff come up? And when it does, how do you manage it? Bron has a lot to say because hers is across a couple of continents. So, Lucas, will you start out? What have you found? Do kids misbehave?
Yes, because they're kids, and that's what kids do. We've had, honestly, the experiences that we've had have been incredibly sort of like, really, this is happening. And I was just telling her this morning, I think probably one of the most dramatic events that we ever had in our 24/7 server was that there was a breakup. A guy and a girl who were, I guess, seeing each other, high schoolers, broke up in Minecraft on our server.
Who got the diamonds?
I hope she did. It was a smart move on her part. Yeah, it was really wise.
Spoken like a true Minecraft god.
But the other kinds of things that we have going on, the typical kinds of things. What do you think would be the most dramatic thing that might happen in Minecraft? It's those kinds of things that happen. Somebody blows up the corner of somebody else's house, either on purpose or accidentally. And we talk about these things. We talk about establishing those norms. Whenever we launch at a school, I go in for the first couple of days and we have that discussion about what are our expectations? What are your expectations as players and things like that? And how will we deal with those? And we let the kids talk about those, and then we have all sorts of examples and opportunities to explore those, and they can come back and adjust those expectations, add more as time goes on.
They're really practicing digital citizenship. And what I'm hearing there too is that this is kind of a safe way to act out, right? This is a way to do it so that nobody gets physically hurt. And maybe there's some emotional hurt sometimes. Has that come up on your server, Marianne? Where kids are,
yes,
yeah,
because they're kids.
Yeah,
because they're human. I don't think that's exclusive to kids.
Bullying is not just the province of youth.
We're not really. I haven't seen problems with bullying. It's more complex. So and that's very typical. And I think it's a really important space to give kids to work that out because they are so over-programmed today. And I was talking about this, I think, this morning, that we've taken a lot of the recess away. And that's so many social skills are learned as negotiations. And so we are actually reticent to get too involved unless it escalates. We usually point them back to work it out themselves because they need those skills. And generally what we have found is given the time, they actually do that. And it's healthy. It's what I did as a kid. We have all kinds of fights and wars and then we're best friends again the next day.
It's real life preparation. Bron?
Yeah, I sit across two projects. Quest Atlantis, which is from Arizona State University, it's a free program that all the schools can join, and Massively Minecraft, which is 3 volunteer educators who run a server for kids globally in Minecraft with a particular philosophy. And across both of those projects, there is a level of monitoring. Quest Atlantis, we monitor all the chat logs, and we take the dialogue. If we find either exemplary behaviour or troublesome behaviour, and we email back the dialogue to the teacher. And that's not to police kids, but to grab the teachable moment, to be able to say to kids, let's look at why this might not have been a really good way to engage. Could you be more positive when you're engaging with this other person? So, and also to say to kids, wow, you were so helpful to the stranger you didn't know when you were playing in the game. So that's one way in the Quest Atlantis project. So we do have internal monitors. We have people who go through the chat logs, and most of our teachers who are in the program are comforted by that because their children can be on 24/7. It means their teacher doesn't have to be. The other side of that is in Massively Minecraft, where we have a system where the children can level up to be moderators on the system, so they get greater responsibilities and they also get greater controls. And we also have in Massively Minecraft parents playing with their kids. So we have a lot of educators who brought their children there as a safe space. The interesting thing about both of those projects is they're predicated on the concept that the best space for children to play is where they're surrounded by trusted adults. So the adults in neither of those spaces are there as the police. They're there as co-players with the kids. And we encourage all of our teachers in Quest Atlantis and all our parents in Massively Minecraft, just come along and play with your kids. Or play with other kids, just to come in and play, get back in touch with your sense of play.
Wow, so monitoring becomes kind of fun.
Yeah.
What a concept.
We have our parents do volunteer hours, but we've had to, and a number of the teachers here would say, the most difficult thing for us as educators to do is to sit on our hands, to get out of the way, to let the kids do what they're going to do and where they want to take them in.
You know, back in 2006, 2007, when I first brought the first cohort of 8th graders, 400 8th graders into Second Life, and that continued for the next 4 years. So I had actually 1 year we brought 800 because we brought to high school too. But initially, we didn't understand how to set up a security protocol that the kids who were smart enough could go home, install Second Life, log into Navajo Islands, which was a secure place on the teen grid, and continue doing whatever they had done during the day. as we found our way, the director of technology realized that there was potential for mishaps there if they were on at night and there was no adult supervision. And his message was, you wouldn't send them out into the playground without supervision, you wouldn't throw them in the lunchroom without supervision, so why are we going to let them go into our space that we're responsible for in the evenings without supervision? And so for a while, when we put that security in place, what I found was the learning stopped. What do I mean by that? Because when they were using this with their teachers for all the standard-based lessons that we had designed to take place, there was a lot of learning going on, but the kind of learning that we were seeing at night stopped. The creative learning, not the directed school standards-based learning, the real creative outreach, the collaborative learning, that stopped. And so what we actually did was set up a schedule of sorts where the kids knew, okay, Miss Sheehy will be on until 10 o'clock on these nights, and I'd open it up for them. And I just have it on another laptop, and I'd be doing whatever I'd be doing on my own big computer. And every once in a while, I glance over and kind of scope out the text and, see if everything was, there was never a problem. But the most incredible things happened in terms of learning in that time because it was unsupervised. It wasn't directed. It was the kids getting in there and exploring and creating of their own accord, and that's when the magic happened. Fast forward a little bit to the Wild School Project. Year 4? We're starting year 4. Naturally, a lot of my kids, and I have actually, I'll have 40 accounts this year, but a lot of my kids who were with me in the first year are still with me. And I would say out of the 25 who participated last year, I would say 19 of them have talked their folks into getting them their own home account. So why I'm bringing this up is I keep their passwords protected when I lock them in at school. They don't have their accounts, but they have their own accounts at home, and they stay on the same server, and they stay with within their own guild. They asked if their home characters could be admitted to their school guild, the legacy. And that's where all the opportunities seem to have arisen for the kids to really exercise leadership. I'll give you one case in point. My guild, Cognitive Dissonance, where at the end game, we have a team of raiders. We're trying to down the last final bosses of Dragon's Hall when we got stuck on like the third boss or the second boss. And one of my students jumped into our event and said, I can help you. This is a 14-year-old. And he said, because my guild is down the mall. So we said, okay, next Saturday night, can you come in as raid leader? And he did, and the adults downed all 4 bosses in one night because of his direction. He's not an exceptional kid. All kids are exceptional, but I mean, he's not like an extraordinarily poised or confident, or he just knows what he's talking about there. It's a comfort zone for him. And he knew from his own experience as a raid participant, he knew how to behave. He knew how to dictate roles and responsibilities, and he knew how to run that raid. And my co-teachers were just astounded. So there's so many opportunities for things that we do not give them opportunities for in school, as much as we'd like to.
Yeah, we need to turn the whole public discussion upside down, because safety is not the goal. Safety is the means to the goal, and the goal is what Peggy was talking about. Empowering young people's creativity, enabling them, freeing up space for their creativity so that they can actually learn in really powerful ways. And there's some safety in that, right? Could somebody speak to that? I mean, maybe I, need a reality check here.
I would, because I've heard so much from just changing our attitude. Our program was really influenced by Anne's work because, like everybody else, we were scared and about all of the dangers out there, so we tended not to give our kids a lot of freedom. And once I came across Anne's work and really started to understand that it wasn't that we were being dictated by fiction more than facts, and realizing that we needed to bring these tools into school, also seeing that I was teaching all of the safety lessons and the citizenship, and the kids are still getting in the trouble. And because they say yes, yes, we get it, and then they get on forms for do everything we don't want them to do. So we've just shifted our thinking that we're going to open up our school and we're going to take it down. Our focus now is on third, fourth, and fifth grade, because we figure there we still have a chance to help inform their norms in a very natural way that we do it at home and at school. But what I wasn't prepared for is how much I learned about what I didn't know about how they live online, and just opening up those servers and watching them, and sometimes seeing the things that we model but we tell them not to, like we tell them not to share their passwords, and yet we share passwords in classes, and things that they think are really odd that we ask them to do. Like, why can't my sister use my account? My parents tell us to share. So these kinds of conversations have come up. More importantly, it's brought the parents to the table. We've always had outreach conversation nights with our parents, and all the people come who really don't need to come. You have those conversations, and does anything really change? When the kids on servers, and all of a sudden, it's just given us a chance to bring the parents to the table, because now when 8-year-olds are going home and making their own servers, or parents have no idea what a server is, and that means that it's a place on a computer where a group of people can meet up. And if you think about it as a parent, you always know where your kids are going, right? You know what house, you know who the adult is. And suddenly online, they're letting the kids online, and they don't know their kids are waking up, and maybe it's not a bad place, but who knows? So we've had a chance to start having that conversation with the parents in a different way. I was very influenced by Bron Stuckey last year, and some of the work they were doing massively. We decided to start having bring your parent to game day, where they could play and we could talk about the learning and they could have fun, and then we could take the parents aside and talk about the very real issues of this is how the kids are living online. And we have found the parents to be very appreciative of that, and that we're having a much healthier conversation that is, I think, in the end, going to be much more protective for all of our children.
Chris, can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in your pre-service teachers? Are they kind of reflecting some of the myth and fear that they pick up in the public discussion?
They reflect a lot of myth and fear, mostly because they see themselves as emulating their favorite teachers. They have a misunderstanding that their teaching sphere will be identical to the one that they came up in. Most will be very critical of that and say, oh, yeah, I barely survived, or it's really rough. But that's the metric by which they measure teaching, because they have had a lot of examples of, I guess, more of a new paradigm. What they struggle with, although some kind of sense that it's there, that we really are responsible for preparing them with, are understandings of the way that digital communications are fundamentally different than face-to-face communications. Disinhibition being one of those characteristics. If you're not familiar with it, disinhibition effect, often referred to more commonly with text messaging, is the absence of the physical relationship and the nonverbal cues that would often prevent us or promote us to communicate in a certain way. So, as saying down the table, this is smiling, so I know he doesn't hate me. But if he was looking away and his jaw was stiff, and
but he was typing just.
Yeah, he was. Maybe he was probably.
Actually, I just want to use the vision effect.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one. So helping teachers understand that there are these things out there, and giving them experience by which they can do that. How do you select language? How do you communicate in a way that does really convey what you believe, that doesn't create misunderstanding? And I think that is important as a tool for teaching their students as well. That they just be aware that there are these differences, and here's why they're different. That in this environment, I can tell by your body language that you think this, or you may not be engaged. But that's one of the things we like about Second Life. We logging into a lecture, but really be making yourself a real sandwich.
Yeah, sure.
Just a quick parallel to what you're saying there, because it's
Didn't you like how I completely dodged that question?
no, that's
I hope I can count on your vote.
No, so a perfect example of playing with students in an MMO space, and we're playing a game called Educator, which is an older MMO, but one of the things that you really have to do is organize large groups of people to play against other players in that space, and this was before the advent of voice over IP became really popular, so it was all text-based chat. And one of the people that I played with became kind of emerged as a leader in that space. But people, the way he communicated, people began to think like, "Oh, you're mad at me. Why are you mad at me?" And so what we figured out is by simply just activating an emoticon with a smiley face, like, "Look, I'm not being assertive, but I'm happy, being positive." That was a really important thing. But where else do we get an opportunity to teach that to kids? Because if we block everything and their access to all these spaces where you can have a contextual place to explore these ideas, it doesn't really mean anything to them. So we give them these opportunities in spaces like World of Warcraft and Minecraft and things like that to talk about these very things.
The good news, I'm sure that Boise State is not alone in our preparation for reserve teachers this way, but Netiquette is now part of that foundational curriculum, as important as classroom management.
Do you teach it, or do they develop it together? They're kind of developing social norms because you're taking them into game worlds, right?
We create opportunities through which teachers can create their own Netiquette teaching strategies, philosophies, and artifacts. So they will create a lesson that walks them through this, that poses questions to their students and asks, how do you solve this? How do you get out of it? Or what's the danger in these things, allowing them to identify, and then their own students create strategies to use that. So Netiquette is alive and well. So I just got the tattoo. So I hope we're still going to call it that for a while, because my Pogs one is hard to cover.
Bron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in the two projects I'm involved with, in one of those, the kids developed the charter for the space. So they designed the rules, and that's been very important, that they are very attached to them and support them in all their behaviours.
Bron, most of the time they come up with what you would have taught them anyway.
Yes,
plus.
absolutely. I think one of the things is we as teachers want to be treated like professionals and be trusted to choose the spaces we take our kids in to play. We have to afford our kids that same trust.
Yeah.
Because my experience is if you think the best of kids, then 99.9% measure up to that. And beyond, and excel. And so what we found in Quest Atlantis is we have a number of moderation levels, and the longer the community's been going, the less we've had to use the external moderation because the kids moderate so well for themselves. So if someone comes in and they're speaking kind of harshly, and that's like, I'm not talking about outrageous behaviour, but just someone who might be expressing a bit of attitude, the kids will say, we don't talk like that around here. They'll very quickly suggest to someone, and they can tell someone's new on the system, and that's a really important point in all these games. If you can tell someone's new, it gives those kids that have been on for a while a chance to say, well, hold on, you might not know how we do things around here, so let me help you. And show them. So we try to get our teachers to model very positive interaction, and the kids want to behave like that. They see other kids who are really stellar at being in the world and having a really positive identity, and they want to be like those kids. And so it's a snowball down a hill with kids, really moderating for themselves if you've invested in developing a community.
So, we're not only needing to give kids space to develop those norms and learn and practice, but we kind of need to give ourselves space to see the evidence of that development, right? I think sometimes we're so fearful or so policy oriented that it's kind of all locked up, and we don't give ourselves breathing room to see all the amazing stuff that they can do in there, and the good behaviors that they demonstrate. It's really, I just find this extraordinary. Lucas, this morning you were talking about having to put a kid in jail. So it does happen, but you might want to explain what kind of jail and how that worked out.
Well, sometimes the admin powers can go to your head. And sometimes...
But that wasn't the case here, no.
And monitoring kids in this environment can even be playful in and of itself, which is really important, I think. So I had a kid who was one of our high schoolers on our Minecraft server, and he was logged in and playing at the same time that some of our fourth graders were playing. Now, in case you didn't know, fourth graders see the world very differently than high schoolers do. And this kid was also the one who was in the breakup patterns. Anyway, so he was just being a little annoying, wasn't really doing anything particularly damaging or hurtful. He was just in another kid's space constantly. It wouldn't leave. And so I met word from one of the teachers to say, via chat, and I'm in my office, and she's like, this kid, such and such, give me a screen name, is just kind of bothering this other kid. So I log in, put him in jail. And one of the cool things about Minecraft, in the mod servers, you can create these spaces and put him in there, and he gets to play. When you log in, you just can't do anything in that space. He can't get out. And it was awesome. So the next thing I see is, no, why am I in jail? So I start talking to him and having this discussion in a private message in chat. I'm like, look, these guys are fourth grade students. They don't really understand things the way that you do. This is an opportunity for you to really kind of take on the wing and emerge as a leader, and you need to model this kind of behavior for them and things like that. I'm not really sure how much of that stuff, because the first question was, how long am I in here? And what's my sentence? And I said, 24 hours. No! So, eventually, he logged out. I think he was a little frustrated. That's okay. He can do that. Log out. So I get a phone call later in the afternoon from the career counselor at the school. And this is one of our smaller schools, and they don't have a lot of technical activity. So Minecraft is really just mushroomed as this huge thing that all these kids are doing right now. And they were having an after-school meeting, something they don't do very often. And he calls up and he says, so I'm here with this student. He's almost in tears. Is there any way that we could let him have access to
reduce the sentence?
I said, you know what, it's an opportunity for me to show mercy. So I'll reduce the sentence, and when he logs in this afternoon, he'll be able to go out and once again get the ability and things like that. But it was just, where else can those teachable moments? And there's opportunities for a real contextual thing to explore digital citizenship. Because kids are there in these spaces anyway. Whether we teach it or not, kids are in these spaces. And if you need an example of what it's like out there, just log into Xbox Live sometime and turn on the listen.
Yeah.
They're
in our house.
They're going in. It's the Wild West out there, and there are adults out there, but they're not the kind of adults in the thing that we need to guide kids.
It's also like a soccer game or an ice hockey game. It's trash talk too. It's kind of a part of the sport. But Marianne, it looks like you have something to say.
I just want to hop in because I think this is a really critical point. As we bring the technology into school, the lines start to blur between school and home. And when we introduced Minecraft, which was actually kind of on the fly, immediately we understood that we were putting our kids, that we had a problem, that these kids would go home, have their own accounts and go on to play, and then all of a sudden that's an issue because we're introducing them to these games. But are we giving them a safe place after school? And so I think that has really become going to be a next part of the discussion. If you're going to do it as a school, introduce these spaces, are you also going to provide some safe spaces for them to play? And I know that Ron can speak to that because it's not that I think those places are horrible, but I don't know that they're developmentally appropriate. And I think, especially for younger kids, it's hard for them to find great playgrounds, virtual playgrounds, where they can let it play.
But they also sometimes want to play like all night on your server. And I remember you were telling me something about a parent saying,
because the kids we get pretty excited about the game and parents want us to control that. And we say absolutely not, because if we shut down the server at 10, they're going somewhere else. And what I tell the parents is this is a partnership. Our job is to give them a safe place to play. Your job is to unplug the computer and put them to bed. Yeah, we've got to all be in this together.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just to point out one other thing about partnerships, really safety, whatever, citizenship development, social norms development is a shared proposition, right? In social media, there is no one party that develops anything or maintains anything. And, I heard you talk about patterns, Lucas. You're seeing patterns as sort of the god of your Minecraft server. And, what a phenomenal opportunity for helping out the school counselor or helping out a school administrator who's investigating an incident. Whoever's, kind of monitoring things on Minecraft can provide all kinds of supporting evidence that, sort of establishes the storyline, right? Because what we see in, any one place is just kind of a screenshot. It's great to get a little bit of the story.
Can I just add, those patterns are across the board in all
Yeah.
these worlds. I mean, if Nick started, was the first observer when we see those patterns over and over.
And the point that I'd like to make is, it seems to me, I spend a lot of time with kids in school. I spend a lot of time with kids in other worlds, virtual. It seems to me that I never see a situation that allows a child to demonstrate or to be the recipient of empathy in school. And yet I see it consistently in virtual spaces.
I want to make a point about that, but I think Chris has something first.
I was just going to add that that I think this discussion of locks and limits, these digital locks and limits, we don't need to have the discussion because we can put this digital lock, we can block this website, we can do these things. This idea that technology will prevent us from having to have the difficult conversation, thankfully, I believe is starting to ebb a little bit. And we're more willing to have the conversation. We see that we've been missing out on teachable moments. When you have the digital lock, it's a game. It's a game, and students are intrigued by this puzzle that they can try to solve, find a workaround, or it's fun to play that game. But when you have person to person, whether they're adult or teen or young, if you have this conversation and really talk about those things, new ideas are formed that do a much better job of establishing those kind of agreed upon locks and limits than any digital clock that says you have to be out of 11:29. And I commend you for saying to parents, no, that's between you guys. I'm not gonna be the sheriff in your town. And I think that there's still a lot of, well, if we can lock it digitally, we should. But I think that there's a much more important conversation that has to happen. Otherwise, these skills and norms are not being learned; they're being imposed. And
Right.
They want to find a game that gets them around.
Takes away the agency, takes away the stakeholdership of the student.
And I wanted to also ask Lucas, was there any community service imposed on this sentence? What kind of community service do you do in Minecraft?
You have to know your learners.
Yeah, fill up pre-rolls.
Yeah, really. Actually,
It's an interesting idea, yeah.
Fix flipping trees. I hate flipping trees. Minecraft, if you have like any information OCDs, it really. Yeah. So, no community service. I think you have to know your learners. This is one of those situations like with this kid. It's like, no, just go do your thing, please, because you don't help. One of those guys. And it varies with your kid. You're accustomed to it.
Marianne, do you want to follow up on that, or I have a point
I just
that
want to say for the record, if I'm on at 10, I do tell them to go to bed. But I know Bron, I'm not great with
We had an incident with one of our moderators, a student moderator on Massive Minecraft. This is a kid that's leveled up through 50 missions to become a moderator on the system, to have world rights. And you have to understand, our kids play before school. They have this interruption during the day they call school, and then they come home after school and get back on the server. And they're in the USA, in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. And this particular child had leveled up to be a moderator. He'd been a moderator for about 2 months, and he came in one day after school and just blew up the world. A whole lot of other kids stuff. And so his moderating rights were withdrawn. The kids talked about how bad it was, and he was not allowed onto the server for a month. And we talked to the parents, Joe, who's our director, talked to the parents, and come to find this is a child that's experiencing extreme bullying at school. And he had come home and acted out in a place, that was his community. And it was a signal, for some discussion and to talk and to understand what's going on. And similarly, in Preston Lands, we've had a couple of kids who've been talking in a very depressed way, and parents have picked up on it, or teachers have picked up on it, and messaged someone. We've contacted the school. Now, why this is important is these conversations are happening in spaces where trusted adults are watching out for those kids, and they notice it. That could be happening in Facebook or somewhere else where nobody will notice, and nobody will be able to think, okay, we have a problem, how can we work this out? And I know in the 2 cases where kids threatened self-harm in Preston Lands, the principals were overwhelmingly supportive that we had told them about it as soon as we could, and they were able to take the text of the discussion and give it to the counsellors. In one case, it was a seriously at-risk child. Because that could be happening anywhere, away from our eyes. But if we have spaces where we can see that, we don't have to take constant responsibility for it, but if we're alerted, that's to the betterment of each of those children.
If I could just quickly go back to Peggy's point about social emotional learning and how that's happening in these worlds. Just this past year, I've had the privilege of working with a few of our country's top bullying prevention experts. One is Sue Swear at the University of Nebraska, and Lisa Jones at the University of New Hampshire. And one of the things that we're finding as we de-silo the social emotional learning silo and the risk prevention silo is we get these people talking together, and extraordinarily, we haven't. They don't go to the same conferences, they don't publish in the same academic journals. But now we're de-siloing that conversation, partly with the help of the MacArthur Foundation and the Born This Way Foundation that was set up by Lady Gaga and her mother, and just launched at Harvard's Berkman Center. And one of the things that we've discovered in our discussions in preparation for that launch at Berkman is that the lion's share of bullying prevention is social emotional learning. That there are only a couple of things, a couple of trainings that school administrators need specifically in bullying prevention. But if we can teach children, and if children can co-develop and co-create social intelligence together in community, we have nailed a big portion of bullying prevention in this country. So we need to unleash this. It's a really powerful thing. And I'd love to see spaces created where, like these spaces where kids can practice civility and mutual respect and so forth. Gosh, I just realized that I haven't opened for your questions. I'm so sorry. But if there are questions in the audience, we have a good 5 minutes to address them. Go ahead. You mean cheats or mods or?
I think it's kind of important for you to understand that my students, when they're playing in the Legacy Guild, which is their school account, they all have the same amount of time, unless they're absent, and then they usually, mom calls me, can they log in from home, and I give them the password, and I change it the next day. When they're on their own accounts, then they have the advantage because they can then sometimes send things from their own home accounts to their class character. But what we really see is that I don't see board cheating fitting into the conversation at all. I see it as creativity and collaboration and ingenuity. And am I addressing your question? Anybody else?
I definitely had kids cheat, which it's a two-edged sword because that usually means Minecraft going out and finding a mod to get an advantage over the game, more importantly over another student, and that happened actually come on me. And again, it's in context. It creates a place to have a conversation. And I had one student who could never admit they were wrong in real life, and they had a mod and they had totally wiped me out of all of my. And I think in a hack, you really want to go after the goal, so you go after the ops. And on one hand, I'm thinking, I'm really impressed my kid has this much ingenuity, but I have to deal with the reality of class that he crossed the line. And it was fascinating because he, of course, lied and said it wasn't him. And he brought up the chat, which was fabulous. And he very, very bright child. And I said, if you were me, would you believe you were the computer liar? And then he broke the computer, but that was really important for him. Because it was the first time we were ever able to get him to admit he had done something wrong, and more importantly, apologize, because he had a pretty good reputation with me. So that was a great opportunity. We were talking about context. We say virtual world, but it's real life. So yeah, it goes on, and sometimes it's playful and not harmless, and sometimes it's really goes to the ethics of who we are as people. So
It's really about our humanity. This is not about technology.
Yeah, if there's a loophole in your system, the kids will find it. We had a third grader in Quest Atlantis a few years ago. There's a currency in Quest Atlantis, and you can give currency to other people that you've earned. And he discovered if you gave negative currencies to people, you took currency out of their accounts. And so he ran around doing that. Now, we didn't know, should we employ him as a programmer or should we punish him? But what we did have was a conversation and said, this is a community. Do you think the other people that you took currency off felt good about that? We played a community card because that's what we worked really hard to develop. So he did get a community service in the project, but it was almost like we should employ this kid. In third grade, he's going to be one of our ace programs.
Great, he's got a Ponzi
That
scheme.
sense of community.
Could we do one more question? Or
Just to follow up on what Bron said, I think that sense of community is something that you don't really understand until you're in and playing the game and you see it develop. Because as you were, to follow up with your question, my kid might have an edge in terms of getting better gear or leveling up his profession at night and sending his other character more gold or something. But how much they share and help each other far outweighs that piece.
And because of disinhibition, these digital communities, the emotional impact on students is really high. The idea that a student locked out of the digital community would be so filled with emotions that they would break down, is not uncommon.
there's learning going on. One more.
In summer, in the first 2 years, they ran it as an after-school program. And last year, we brought it in as an elective because we had the evidence from Pender County who had already done it. So we brought it in as an English language arts elective, and actually it was also used, and it's going to be used again this year, as a learning center, scheduled time for the learning center kids. for all kids who have been identified with some kind of a learning issue. Middle school.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I always tell people start in the same place with them, and it's easier to sell it to administrators, like, you know, example school. So if it doesn't work out.
Half of these resources.
Yeah, and I actually, I'm going to share all these tips in my talk today. I've got because I want you to have some real practical tools, but that's one of the things. You start in the same place to fail. Once you build that acceptance there, you move into places where it's a little less safe, but you know, like an enrichment class. And that's part of all of our schools have some sort of INE or enrichment intervention type period built into the day, and it's perfect for both of those, enrichment and intervention. And once you build it, out of the district level, once it began to get acceptance and steam and a lot of positive press, principals are competitive. They're like, I'm going to take my school, at my school, and so it's just been the Minecraft stuff, especially, has just been strong.
Definitely.
Crest Atlantis is actually curriculum based, so it has a whole lot of curriculum material in it, focused in math, science, language arts, and so on. So it is, and over the course of this year, it's going to be mapped so that you can map it to what you're doing in curriculum. But our story is much the same. Schools start, if you've got an administration that's nervous, they usually start in some sort of trial. People see that no one died, none of the kids got abducted, aliens didn't take them, and then you can start to bring it into the school.
I want to thank you all so much for this fascinating conversation, and thank you for coming. Please come to individual talks by Lucas, Peggy, and Bron, 115, 215, 315. You can continue the conversation there. Thank you.
Right.